open, otherwise someone will blank. Good afternoon. So I think a lot of you know me, but I might reintroduce myself. Some of them I haven't seen for 20, 30, 40 years now. I think that all makes us younger. So I'm Karambod Siddiq. I'm the Hackett Professor of Agriculture here and the Director of the UWA Institute of Agriculture. So first thing first, it's a customary that the university acknowledge that we are situated on Noongar land. Do we have a slide? I could not see that slide. Okay. Noongar land, the Noongar people remain the spiritual custodians and cultural custodians of this land and continue to practice their beliefs, values, and language, and so on. So on behalf of the University of Western Australia, especially the UWA Institute of Agriculture, I would like to welcome you all for this special lecture. This idea came from Professor Wallace Cowling, my colleague here. I think he sent an email at 2:30 a.m. one night because Wallace works at night, and then you may ask why I opened my email at 2:30 a.m. Why? Because I can explain that once our Director General Graham Robertson, he called me to his office. This was a controversial thing, I won't tell. Why are you sending emails at 2:30 a.m.? I said, why did you open my email at 2:30 a.m.? So my answer was that I came back from a nice dinner party. I had half a bottle of red wine, and I cannot get sleep, so I thought I might do some work. Anyway, so that's the explanation. On behalf of the university, again, I welcome you for this important lecture by Dr. Gustave Gintzburger. And many of you know him. I think we were recollecting. I met him in 1981 in Ikada, 80-81, that period when he was there at Ikada. So that's in Aleppo in Syria. Now, Dr. Gintzburger is a rangeland ecologist and botanist with over 50 years of international experience in the sustainable management of Mediterranean arid zone. So that makes perfect to give a talk in this Mediterranean type climate of southwest of Western Australia. His career spans North Africa, the Middle East, Central Asia, and Australia. And more recently, I just heard that he has also traveled extensively in China from Urumqi all the way back to Beijing on a train. Wonderful trip, excellent food. Come in. There's one seat here, one here. And with a deep focus on tribal grazing systems, pasture ecology, plant genetic resources, degraded land restoration, a former senior scientist with the CIRAD, that's in France, right? Yep, it's still operating. And I met some of the French people in Beijing last week. And Ikada, more importantly, also held positions in INRA. We were talking about INRA in Dijon and other places. And FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, and more importantly, the Department of Agriculture, now the Department of Primary Industries, Western Australia. And he worked with many, many colleagues, and some of them could not make it, as send apologies, particularly people like Bill Collins and so on. From his early work in Libya in the 1970s to his leadership of the International Research Program, Dr. Gintzburger has authored multiple books, over 90 technical reports, and mentored, more importantly, numerous graduate students. Now based in Western Australia, he remains active in sharing and promoting ecological knowledge and vital tool for modern and rangeland rehabilitation. Just mentioned that he has been traveled from the north of Western Australia, Carnarvon, all that area, rangelands, and had a wonderful meeting with the growers and producers and so on. Today's lecture, he's explored the tribes, territories, and the ecology of survival, insights from Libyan landscapes, and their relevance to Australian rangeland, particularly West Australian rangeland. So, would you please join me in thanking Dr. Gintzburger for his lecture, which he will be doing now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
I hope this is working and you hear me, I suppose, now? Good. Good. I suppose, I think the nice presentation you did in saying that I'm a range ecologist and all this type of thing, I think it's just a title. I must say that I'm just not a bushman in the Australian sense, but I'm a guy from the steppe. I would recognize myself as the guy from the steppe, from Morocco to Mongolia and from Kazakhstan to Ethiopia. So today, trying to go into the life in Libya, I think it's a long story because I started my first trip in Libya in 1966. I think a lot of you would not have been born. Sorry, guys, not some of the guys there. Yeah, so that was an early trip there, and I discovered Libya. A lot of dream. I was dreaming to go to the south, to the real desert. But actually the desert is a desert. You can't change much in the desert, but you can change things in the cropping land and in the steppe, which is the country between the crops and the real desert. And that's where I'm trying to get you there. So just a quick reminder, if you go to North Africa or the Middle East, you have to remember that they are, oops, sorry, what I done? Oh, I missed something. The pointer.
It's in the middle.
In the middle here.
Oh, that's the pointer.
I remember this graph.
Yeah, you remember this one. Okay, this is a graph that I drew for ICADA at the time, and just give you an idea of the land use. And what you have to remember is in this region, you have the rainfall. Rainfall is really leading the system, the type of system you will find in the region. And you may say that the very important limit is 100 millimeters. 100 millimeters, below 100 millimeters, desert. Nothing is growing back. If you destroy a plant in the desert, a bush, it will never come back. Never come back. Okay? 200 millimeters is the lower limit for rain-fed barley cropping in North Africa, the Middle East, more or less, 200 millimeters. 300 millimeters is the minimum for wheat cropping, rain-fed cropping. And everything is actually running around this. So you have the rangeland here, which are between the 100 millimeters up to 500 millimeters, Libya more or less, but mostly in this region, between 100 and 300 millimeters. And the barley system, because the population is increasing in this part of the world, the people want more cropping. They cultivate, they destroy the rangeland. But at the same time, the people would like to have meat on their table. And therefore, the flock is increasing, and we're going to see what's going on. And of course, you have the big project, irrigation project, pushing the things, taking the best land. So this is too much pressure on nature. Nature is powerful, but the men are, trying to really push the thing to the extreme. Now, Libya. I suppose you all know Libya is between Tunisia and Egypt, and approximately 1,400 kilometers from the Tunisian border to the Egyptian border. And you have three main regions in the northern part of Libya. The western region, Tripolitania, which was actually a colony of Carthago on the top there, okay? And then you have the Sirte region, the central region. This is very important because here the Sahara is going into the Mediterranean Sea. That's where the Sahara is reaching the Mediterranean Sea. And this is very important point in terms of biodiversity, because here, this place here, is the limit between the Maghreb, the western part, and the eastern part, the eastern region, Cyrenaica and America, which is more related to the Mashrek. And the plants, the systems are different from one side to the other side. And this is still the case in Libya. Libya these days has two heads, one in Tripoli and one in Benghazi. political head. They're still separated. Okay? Now, Libya, very long history. You have the start first, what you have to know is the place is mostly in the old days were actually inhabited by the Berbers. The Berbers are special people. They're not Arabs. They are Berbers. And they do speak a specific language, which is completely different from Arabic. And they have their own writing. But in the old days, you had the trading post from the Phoenicians, 800 years before Christ. And then you had the colonization by the Roman, the Greek, the Vandals, the Byzantine, 7 centuries. Christian country, that was Christian country. And then came the Arab conquest by 641. It's important to understand all this. It's not, you know, if you don't understand this, you don't understand what's happening in the Middle East and North Africa. And then you had the Spanish occupation, tiny things on the coast, 50 years, nothing. Then you had the Turkish Ottoman Empire, 5 centuries, and you still see a lot of the rules of the land in Libya, which are actually the Turkish rule. Then you had the Italian fascist colonization, 1912 to 1943. That was the time from the Second World War, where you had the German and the Italian against Montgomery and some other people. The Libyans were not concerned, but they had a lot of problems with the minefield and all the problems of this war there. And then you had, after the war, the Brits and the French took over, controlling Libya. Oil, oil, oil. Okay, that was not really the time for oil, because then King Idris was the first king of Libya. Libya became independent in 1951, according to a decision from United Nations. And then that was the time when oil was starting being produced. A good thing and a curse for the country. Then came Gaddafi Republic, Jamahiriya. I won't go into all this. And then the failure to the transition, 2 countries, Tripoli, Benghazi, and all these type of things. Now, I'm going to go into the rangeland of Libya, and thanks to my friend who asked me to talk about the West Australian rangeland, I thought it was, you know, yeah, okay, so now the rangeland of Libya. Here you can see that approximately 25% of the land in Libya is rangeland, actually a bit more, about 13 million hectares. Now you have to think Libya is 1.8 million square kilometers, about 1/2, 2/3 of Western Australia. So it's a big chunk of land. The soil in Libya, and I only consider the top part of Libya, and this is important to know that a lot of the western part of Libya is sandy soil. That's why actually the link between Western Australia and Libya from the beginning. Okay? And then you have a lot of steppic soil. And I did again the map, well, I redid the map of soils of Libya according to my own classification, which is not the American, not the Russian one. I want a classification that the guys in the field can recognize the soil, because soil are important, rainfall is very important, and then you can understand the vegetation. Rainfall, what you have to remember, you have 2 big zones, 2 large zones. Here, Tripolitania, 200, 250 millimeters maximum near Tripoli. And once you go to Benghazi, Benghazi is here, and these mountains here, 1,000 meters elevation, you go to 500 millimeters. 2 different countries in terms of soil, rainfall, and all this. But what you have to remember in this region, high, inter, and intra rainfall variability, which means you can get some year plenty rain, and the next year nothing. So this is a view of the landscape of the rangeland in the western part of Libya, with the incredible Jebel Nefusa going up to 1,000 meters. That's where the Berbers are living. They're retreated into the mountains when the invaders will be whoever, making problem to them. So, but they're still coming from the mountains to graze on the rangeland during the spring. Now, the different type of landscape you would have. In the west, sandy country, huge place with sand, square kilometers of sand going up to the Tunisian border and going into Tunisia. But once you get close to the mountains, to the Jebel Nefusa, you have nearly no soil left. Calcareous crust, hard crust. If you go to the east, in the mountain, you have an incredible diversity in terms of vegetation, especially these large trees, which are Cupressus sempervirens, which are from Libya. These trees are 30, 40 meters high, destroyed these days. This is an old photo. They had a fire recently, everything was destroyed. Okay, and this is the type of rangeland. So you see completely different country from the east and the west. Now, history. We're all talking about climate change. I will not argue anything about this, but I just want to tell you one thing. Once you get into the desert and you go into the steppe, Jeremy, you witnessed the place. Here, here, this is 60 kilometers south from Tripoli, 60 kilometers, Taruna. And you have a lot of engravings on the rocks, which were covered by loess, dry period, loess eroded, and then these engravings are appearing. And would you believe, this is a rhinoceros, a forest rhinoceros, 10, 12,000 years ago in Libya. And then, of course, you all know about the elephant from Hannibal. There were special elephants from the northern part of North Africa, small ears, not like the African elephant with the very large ears. So completely different. So what you have to remember is in terms of climatic condition in Libya and in the region, long period of climate change, dry period, wet period, dry period, long period, you know, and this created the soil on the calcareous crust. Now, of course, it's a dry country, but the local people, the Berbers, and also the Romans and the Byzantine, they used to crop in the desert, even with 50 millimeters rainfall. They knew how to collect the water in large water catchments. They had no bulldozer, no tractors, no jeep, no GPS, no all this, but they knew how to do it because they didn't have watch, but they had the time, as they say. And the very interesting thing is, here you see, here this is a wadi, what you call a creek, a dry valley. When it's raining, 50 millimeters, the water starts running into the wadi when you get approximately 10 millimeters in this loamy country. So you get the water running, coming. And then they organize a lot of lines. You see these lines here? That's what they call jaraya, to collect the water and guide the water into the wadi. And then in the wadi, they organize small dams, you see, with sluice gates so that they can get the water in different parts of the field. And they had also spillways in the middle. So they could harness the water 50 millimeters, 2 inches, to talk like you're talking. I don't understand what it means. And 2 inches, and they would grow barley, wheat sometime, figs, olive trees, almonds, and all this. And this is, you know, this is history. We know about this. So they were doing everything like this. Here you have still the remaining Byzantine farm. And this is quite extraordinary because you go into this landscape and you see there is nothing. Yes, there are things, plenty of things. Jeremy saw it, and here is an example. Sorry. Here is an example of the sluice gate. You see the walls here, and here there was, I've lost the photo, but there was a big round stone, like the tomb of Jesus, you know, like the old way. They had the round stones, and they would roll it to close the sluice there. And then here is one of the Jiraya, double wall, and the stones in between just to guide the water into the field. So this is quite incredible. You go to this place and you say there is nothing. No, the people were there. And modern things, the Libyans are still using some sort of Jiraya, but they don't have time because now they have cars, they have tractors, they have watches and all this, and computers. Now, the agricultural system, mostly rangeland, as I explained, semi-nomadic, increasingly settled because it's easier to get a job with the oil companies, and the land is ruled by the tribal rules which are organizing the thing. So, but this is mostly between 50 and 500 millimeters all over Libya, even down in the desert. And of course, the other main activity is rain-fed cropping, mostly barley, rain-fed barley. Now, what you have to understand, because agriculture is expanding into Libya and all the countries, all the best rangeland, which were in the Depression, the very best rangeland I've seen 50, 60 years ago, they're gone. Nothing left. Cropping in the wadis, you see, and all things are destroyed. Anna, would you have any water? Please, I'm just getting dry, you know, working about Libya, talking about Libya. So this gives you an example. Some of the friends who came with us, Zliten. This is the Zliten Plateau, approximately 175 millimeters to 200 millimeters. And this used to be beautiful rangeland, destroyed, cropping. And you have to remember in this place, 150 to 200 millimeters, if you're lucky, you get one good year out of 4 or 5. 1 out of 4 or 5. Yes, sir.
Would you call it bugged?
What do you mean? Bagged, that's right, yeah. No, actually, they're making, you know, because they're cropping barley. Not only they collect a bit of grain, but they're also grazing all the crop residues. Now, what is interesting is that the tribes actually have always and from a long time used the land, and especially the wadis, the creek, to grow, you know, their rain-fed barley. And you can see here, for example, this is going from the coast of Libya. Actually, the Mediterranean Sea is not far away here, maybe 50 kilometers north. They go down to Seba in the Fezzan. 500 kilometers, their territory is all this for this tribe, the Magara. And the rainfall here in this place is between 50 and 100 millimeters. But they're still cropping barley into the wadis. They're still, you know, they're still getting barley there, rain-fed barley. And of course, it creates a lot of problems between the different tribes, because you're cropping here, first come, first serve. First come, first serve most of the time. You don't use any fertilizer, because you never know who is going to crop the same place. So there's a lot of problems with this, cropping the land. And the same problem is with water, the wells for the livestock. For example, here you have a tribe, you know, Gaddafi, from Gaddafi. Here they're inland, and they're locked between different other tribes, Urfella, Hawlid Sliman, and here they can't get access to the coast. So continuous problems between these guys, the Ferjan, Gaddafi, and all this type of thing. So this is not a very stable situation. but they always find agreement. Sometimes it's quiet, some other time it's not very quiet. Now, coming back to the rainfall, thank you very much. Yeah, talking about dry country. Thank you. Now, rainfall. I was mentioning before that in arid zone, the rainfall is always low and erratic. And this is in the book. In the book we did all the statistical analysis of the data we got from 1945 up to 2010. Thanks to FAO. FAO refused to give us the data from 1900. We couldn't get the data from our friend from Libya, previous data from the Italians actually, unfortunately, because it would be very interesting to see what the recurrence of the drought, the period of drought. But you can see, this is one example, I won't go into details. The blue side, you can imagine, are the wet period, and the dry ones are where you have the rainfall under the average. It's a country of 200 millimeters, okay? And then you can see, and we looked at 10 or 12 stations. Some of the stations you see a drying trend. Some of the stations you see nothing. Maybe this, because it's very low rainfall and you have a lot of variability into your data. Statistician, please don't shoot at me. Mario, please. Okay, what you have to remember also, the lower the mean annual rainfall, the higher the coefficient of variation. So you could be in a 100 millimeters country, one year you would have 25 millimeters, 25, it's 100 millimeters, no, 25 millimeters, that's all what you get. Next year you may get 300 millimeters, and so on. So prediction in this country, in this part of the world, forget about it. There is no real way to predict things. Now, what I've done here. What I want to tell you is that drought, you know, people talking climate change again. But if you talk to the local people, the farmers and all this, they talk with their grandfathers and all this, they say, oh, yes, we know, you know, yeah, zaman, you know, long time ago. The drought, 1846, 1867, 20 years drought in southern Tunisia, 20 years in a row. Okay, the people were eating, you know, some of the local grasses, you know, the grain. And then you see, again, 1918, 1927, you see, that's interesting, it's always a period of war. And then 1945, very dry year. I was born in 1945, and my parents were saying that it was a very dry year in Tunisia, and it kept on for 4 years. Now, the livestock, very important, the livestock in the region. Libya, like southern Tunisia, they have a special sheep they call Barbary, fat-tailed sheep. The sheep has a very large tail on the back where he is storing fat for the dry period. And this is very interesting because it's a very valuable fat that you use for cooking. Leah, they call it. And then you have the goats, Mali goats. The Mali goats, Shaitan al-Aswad, they call them the black devils. They have to get them, but they know this is trouble to have these goats. And then, of course, the Maghrebi dromedary, which is specific from North Africa, as the name indicates, and they were mostly pack camels for the long caravan roads going from the coast of Libya, Tripoli, or even Benghazi, going down to Chad, to Mali, 2,000 kilometers, pack of 200, 250, 300, sometimes up to 1,000 camels going through the desert. Of course, when the truck and the diesel came in, forget about the camels, disappeared. There's still some camels, you see. you don't really want to talk with the camels. You know this, you guys from the bush. Now, despite all this situation, despite all the limits you have in the country, what happens is from 1942 to 2017, you see the number of camels more or less stays the same. People like camels, especially young camels, very nice meat. Old camels, you better eat your shoes, I would say. You see, now here goats, the population of goats is staying more or less the same. A bit increasing because there are less palatable plants on the rangeland. And the goats are making better use of the unpalatable plant. But interesting enough, or it's in despair, I would say, you see that the sheep number has gone from the time I was in Libya to 1.2 million, or to about 2 million, to nearly 7 million. How can they do this? Well, simply, when you look at the figures and you go to the field, animals are not grazing on rangeland. They are artificially fed with supplementary things, with feed, especially concentrates, and barley grain. Now, if you look at the details here, this is the barley grain imported in Libya from 1961 to 2017. Okay, so it shows you they're mostly artificially feeding the animals on the ranch. And this is only possible because there is a large amount of dollars in Libya. Dollars, money, money, money. You can import anything from China, from USA, from Europe, from Australia too. A lot of equipment from Australia. Now, and what happens now? Most of the place, open air feedlot. This is a small example, but some are much more, much better. And then when you talk with the farmers, well, with the shepherd, the Bedouins, sometimes people from Chad, and they say, it's no point. We just go around for a stroll on the ranch just to breathe fresh air. Shem al-Hawa, they say. We just go on, breathe some fresh air. That's all. But they know there is nothing to graze around, not much. So this is really a big problem. Now, an example, you could say, this desertification, degradation, can you escape from this with this number of animals and all these type of things? Now, would you imagine this place here, 1984? Gus was there with some colleagues. We were collecting medics there. And of course, we would not go on this side. This is all minefield from Second World War. You don't go like this. You see, no way to travel there. You don't go. And this is still there. Now, you see the difference here? It's grazed. It's 150 millimeters country. 150. 6 inches, is it right? 7 inches, something like this. Not much. It shouldn't be anything, consider this as desert. But look on the other side, the vegetation. Still, the people have problem with the mines, the minefield from Second World War. Now, this is one example, but more interesting, here. But more interesting is that the local people, when they decide to take control of their land, they're doing incredible things. And this is one place close to a place called El Bedan, which is close to Ajidabia, at the bottom of the Sirte region. And here, this community here decide to protect this area. No fence, no landmines, no electric wires, just saying, you don't enter this place. This is the old principle from the mountain where they're saying this is a protected area, they call it Agdal, which means it's protected, you don't graze. And you can see this place here is a place of 125 millimeters of rainfall, and over 15, 20 years, 30 years, look at the vegetation, recovery of the vegetation. And you get rabbits, you get partridge, you get bird, you get snakes, life is back. So, which means it's not something that the whole place, because of low rainfall, is going to be finished. Animal control, stocking rate control, well, maybe we'll talk about this later. Okay, now, from Libya to Western Australia, I already mentioned that Mediterranean climate, winter precipitation, we know about this. Sandy soil, sandy loam soil, same as you would have in a lot of places here. In South Australia also. Small ruminant and dromedaries on rangeland, rain-fed barley, a bit of wheat cropping, not much, rain-fed. And then project from the Ag Department, the lay farming project in Libya, 1974 to 1984. And we had a lot of farmers from Western Australia who went there with people from the Ag Department who went to Libya and worked with the Libyans trying to develop the lay farming system. I'm not going to go into the lay farming system. You all know what it is, I suppose so. And then rangeland project. Now, as I explained, because the people from the Ag Department at the time were working on the lay farming system in Libya, and because of the problem of the development of pasture east of Merredin in drier country, they were looking for, the Ag Department was looking for plant material that they could use in this country there, where the subclovers could not go, because too low rainfall country. So the idea was to get, some medics, rhizobium, and trying to develop things like this near Southern Cross and all this place. So the West Australian Ag Department was very interested to actually get some, to get some drought-resistant annual medic, not only for Western Australia, but also for Libya. And that's when we did a large collection of forage plants from the deserts of Libya, from the steppe. Large collection, over 2,000 ecotypes. Mostly legumes. We were interested in legumes because they were everywhere, different species. And the collection was actually secured, documented, evaluated, and seed produced from the best ecotypes. I mean, Mario helped developing the database for this, and Gilbert Webb, Jeremy Wallace, and a few other people were involved into this, so they know everything about all this. But not only this, at the time, despite working with plants, the idea was, what are we going to do with these plants? Where are we going to introduce them? Is there any way to introduce them on rangeland? And this is when I start working and developing a small machine for doing the reseeding on rangeland. Low cost. I don't need a bulldozer, If you're working on rangeland, you have to be as smart as a dingo or a fox, you see. If you're trying to go with big machinery, expensive, you're wasting your time, you're wasting your money, and the results are, I'm sorry to say, guys, very, very, very poor usually. So the machine was developed. A local guy decided to make it, develop it. Sorry, this is one of the machinery that the Ag Department brought into Libya for land clearing, for seeding, No, that was very efficient. The guy knew what they were doing. The problem was the different culture between the Australian farmers and the Libyan farmers. There is a huge gap, which was very difficult to actually manage and control. Nick could talk about it for the next 2 hours, I suppose, the next 2 days. Okay. Yeah. Now, Western Australia, Libya, Western Australia. If I looked at, I just put on the top here a map of the northern part of Western Australia. It goes between, Exmouth to Gillis, or the South Australian border, more or less. And then actually I didn't put the desert area, which would go approximately like this. So, which means, Libya, northern Libya, you can relate a lot of things in terms of climate, some of the soil, to Western Australia. What you have to remember, winter rainfall. I'm not talking about the summer rainfall of the northern part. Forget about it. I'm not competent. I don't know anything, or nearly nothing. Interesting enough, I went to BOM. I got nothing from them, just this map. I tried to get, the area per isoyet and all this. And interesting enough, sorry, this is just a personal criticism, 275 millimeters. Why 275? Why not 250? Why not 300 isoyet? What's the logic behind it? There must be some logic in it. I'm sure I know this is cropping. But anyway, I tried to get some figures of the area. You see how many hectares of this and this. I couldn't get anything. I have to look for some other thing. But the point is that everybody agrees. It's not a consensus. It's a scientific fact, I suppose, that the rainfall is slowly declining in the last 25 years in Western Australia. I know, because we're not on the main at our place. We're just on collecting the water on the roof, and we have difficulties to fill our 14,000 gallons tank with rain in the past few years. So, but let's hope for the best. Could always come back. Okay. Now, South Australia rangeland, obvious degradation. Good God, I've been looking at your rangeland since 1980, Exmouth and all this place. I just said, incredible, it looks like North Africa. 200 years of grazing, and the rangeland are in this condition. Something wrong. Okay, so now, recent shift from sheep to cattle, different grazing type of use of the land, nothing left on the soil, and the cattle are starting, grazing the things, the leaves of the trees, and you can see going from Mount Magnet, and you drive and you can see under the Acacia annuera, and you can see there is no leaves. You can see under the trees, kilometers. So is something wrong? The lower stratum of annuals eradicated. Shrub and trees defoliated to the extreme. I'm sure you know some places where it's beautiful. There's always a hole in the paradise, you see. And so no vegetation on soil surface, which is trampled, compacted, crusted, no water infiltration in the soil. We know this. Water comes, runoff on the top, goes away, forget about it. In the creek, and then you have water erosion in the creek, and then you have disaster because it gets to the homestead, and you get flooding and all these problems. Okay? Now, what happens is the same in Libya. The soil seed stock is depleted. There's no seed left from the native vegetation in the soil. And that's where I want to come. what I've done here. Why I insisted, and I had a meeting where I was kindly invited by friends, colleagues, people who knew a bit about rangeland, to a station near Mount Magnet, and they were doing some work on the rangeland. And I was a bit surprised that they were doing work to collect the water. But collecting the water on the rangeland is one part of the work. It's not helping. You have to do the reseeding with it. If you don't add seeds, you can collect as much water as you want. It's useless because there is no seed in the stock. Or it takes 20, 30, 40 years to get some vegetation come back. If you don't have cattle, if you don't have sheep, if you don't have goats, if you don't have brumbies, if you don't have everything. Okay? So, now, what you have to do is to crack the crust. It's very important. And you have to add seeds, appropriate seeds, so that you can start the system again. Revegetation. Okay? You don't need perennial plants, you need annuals, because annuals has the relative growth rates much better than perennials. They grow much faster than the perennial plants. So this is what you want. You want something which is going to be quick to install, to spread, to expand. Okay? Now, main plant traits that you require for rangeland rehabilitation. Seed dormancy is very important in arid zone. Seed dormancy. You know, you don't want to, it's not cropping where you put seeds and you get them, you know, growing and you can harvest within 6 months. On rangeland, you can have a false start, you can have a bad year. If you put your seeds and you lose all your seeds, you have to start again next year. While if you have plants which have seeds which have dormancy and can stay many, many years, that's the way to go. The other thing is you need species which have a high seed production and propagals. It's not, you don't need to produce 1 or 2 seeds, you need huge number of seeds, okay? And you have to get a prostrate habit. This we know for pasture plants. We don't want erect type. It's like a sandwich or McDo for the sheep, but you want to have things which are on the soil, covering the soil. Drought resistant, self-reseeding. They should be self-reseeding. And then you must have a mechanism by which you disperse your seeds, actually the propagals, the fruits, by anemochory, hydrochory, and zoochory. So I know it's a bit of a problem because some of the people from rangeland at the time of the sheep, they said, no, we don't want to have spiny burrs. It's going to spoil our wool. Sorry guys, it's easier to remove a burr from meadows than some debris from grasses into the wool. You all know this. Now, and the other part is to easily produce seeds. I'm saying seeds? No, not seeds. Fruits. Fruits. Forget about the seeds. The seeds is for cropping land. Okay? Now, in Libya, that's my best bet if I had to do things here, you see, and I've been advocating some of the colleagues, but I face a concrete wall. Sanctus ciliaris, buffalo grass. Ooh, buffalo grass. No, we don't want any buffalo grass. It's terrible. But this is a Mediterranean buffalo grass. This is not a rhizomatous, buffalo grass like the one you have in the north. This is a Mediterranean one. It's still a C4, so growing with a summer rain. Very good species. Not very palatable because you don't want to give cake to your animals. You want to have a plant which is going to resist grazing. Otherwise, they will disappear. And medics. Sorry, I'm coming back to medics. They're all over the place. And shall I just remind you that one cultivar of medics, Circle Valley, is it Circle Valley? Correct me, is coming from Kalgoorlie. And you have many medics in the region of Kalgoorlie, and on the rangeland you find the medics here and there. Now, the question is, the potential is annual medics. If I had to do some work on rangeland here, I would use some annual medics, but there are problems with them. There are plenty different type of medics for different rainfall, different type of soil, okay? But on rangeland, I would not use seeds of medics. I would use the full pods with the seeds which are dormant into it, so that if you miss a season, there's still seed for the next season. Dormancy is very important. And of course, the buffalo grass. You remember, guys, that there is a West Australian cultivar called West Australian of buffalo grass, which is coming from Wallal Station. Forgot about it? Since the Afghan cameleers, they brought them in their pockets, you see? It's still there. You can find it on the range. If you go to the Murchison, you can see it around. This is not Rhizomatous 1 bunch like in Libya, a Mediterranean type which has evolved most likely like this. So, Libyan collection, we evaluated the thing at the Ag Department, and in 3 years we did 5 seasons. Quick in the field here in Western Australia, harvest, quick before the summer, get on the plane with the seeds, go and do the job in Libya. So we did 5 seasons in 3 years. Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, and all this. And this was done with friends like Adnan Zbeta and Abu Bakr Madour. Incredible work. And Kevin suffers so much on this. We had so much love, on all this. And the team at the time, I was lucky to have 3 Libyan friends with us. Adnan Zbeta, the late Mohamed Fitouri, Abdelafiz Rojbani, and Pete Skinner. And we did an incredible work. It was really a fantastic thing. Thanks to Clive Francis, who gave us, free hand. Now, during this time, we developed this stupid machine. It's a pitting, reseeding machine. Simple. Just dig a small pit in the soil, discontinue it so that you don't start erosion, and with a box on the back to distribute the seeds. You see, this is just a simple disc here with fingers, so it keeps running. We don't need electricity, we don't need computers, we don't need anything. It's just actually in 1984 at the International Rangeland Congress, I was meeting with Stephen Hill. I showed him the machine, and he said, "Oh, it's very interesting." And I said, "Steve, I don't want to be pulled by a tractor or a big machinery. I want the guys to pull it behind a camel." And Steve told me, "We're going to call it the camel pitter." And that's the name of the thing. Okay, and then the machine apparently, that's the patent. It's an international patent. The machine has been developed by different companies, and here at Shala Station, I was discussing with colleagues there and explaining the functioning of the machine. The only problem is that they were using the machine without any reseeding because they don't have seeds. So they're doing pitting. So what? We can say this again after. But you see, the first tests were at Coolgardie, at Wooliba Station, 1982, 1983. And we did it in Laverton, we did it in many other places, People thought that we were crazy. I think the people from the Ag Department, from the Rangeland unit, thought that, what the hell these guys are doing there? Silence. Okay. Now, what is important, another point is very important, is that the pit should be shallow. It's no point to dig, with a big machinery and deep up the soil. In Libya, the people say Ardmut, it's dead soil. If you start plowing deep, you're bringing back, the calcareous crust and the limestone, and nothing is going to grow on it. You bring up gypsum, nothing is going to grow on it. So the idea for us was to do, using this machine, was to do small work, low energy, simple. And interesting enough, a lot of the time, and that's what we've seen at Shala Station, on the big pit down at Shala Station with a scraper, with a big machinery, the first germination happens here on the bond. Of course, that's the place where you have still a bit of organic matter. And all the bottom is actually totally, how do you say, lissé, just, yeah, clean, just shaved. And nothing is going to grow there. So I can explain this, and the Italians have developed the Nardi machine, which is an incredible machine, $350,000, with a big hydraulic and a big mergeboard plow, digging holes, and the cost of it, and when they're selling the machine, there are $200,000 worth of spare parts. $500,000. Who is going to buy this for rangeland? So we should work.
No, this one is the left side
The machine here?
is a bit too much heat. You see, it's dribbling all the time. Too much heat.
Because I want to come at the very end of it.
Now, if I go to the right one, only small quantity, very small quantity.
You see, here we are using heat.
But it's working well, no?
That's what it says here. So, remember what it says here? It's a nice place for holiday. So you look at the, you see the soil,
plateau.
that was all rigged 2 years ago with the
هذا خمسة
V9
أكيد.
and the V8.
5
Nothing is growing.
6.
ميبي واحد ثاني 1 2 3 4 5 6
Yeah, okay.
بعدين
So this one, yeah, this one.
5
Sorry.
Something. No, that's okay. I just want to move it faster. Oh, here. Can I get here? No. Yes.
لا اللي بعدها
You see here?
Now look here. That's what I want to tell you.
تربطينية تربطينية وفي crust.
Guy knows terbitinea.
You see?
It means this
Nothing.
is
مشاكل.
soil compacted. It's
Nothing.
clay, and you can see the thing.
So the pitting just make the hole. You know?
Yes, تحول طبخة
Yes, exactly.
So the pitting
Okay.
is actually just scratching the surface. But please don't
Good.
use cropping cedar, an ordinary cedar. You're going to waste your time. You're going to kill the place. You're going to erode the
And your
place.
shoes.
So you have to
That's
remember
Mustafa's
this.
shoes.
You
And
need a
his net,
specific
his hat.
machine. I'm not saying you should buy my machine. I get no royalties on it. I never got a single penny. He knows me. Okay? So the point is that the crust, you have to break the crust, you see. Yeah, and so, sorry, this is a very small result. You're going to laugh. But this is here, that's one of the Medicago tricycla we planted, and it was only with 70 millimeters. 70 millimeters, just a simple amount of water collected into the pits. And this was from seeds. Unfortunately, this was in 2009. We couldn't go back there, and the fight started at the end of, early 2011, by February 2011. And all the friends, working there, we modified the machine. We had a few things. we fixed the machine, we destroyed the machine, we did all sorts of stupid things. Now, Southern Rangeland option. You could do nothing. You could do nothing, but then more rangeland degradation. It's going to go. Mining industry are going to look after this. Stop here. You're going to get how many dollars the West Australian government is getting from the mining industry? $8 to $12 billion per year. Good God. Forget about the rangeland. That's the problem. Okay? Now, destock, it will decimate the pastoral communities. What we're going to do, you know, with all these guys who spend all their life on the rangeland, not talking about the, the black fellows who are living on rangeland. But the other problem is going to have the increase of the feral animals, because nobody on the land, perfect. I mean, the goats are going to have a happy day, and all the others. And then the Australian government, the West Australian government, is even going further by the new farm law. Monique is laughing. So that nobody can go and shoot the animals on the rangeland. Thanks, Mr. Cook. Cook? I can't remember. So, rehabilitate WA rangeland. You need to have a combination, you know this. You cannot solve a problem, a long-time problem by just saying, okay, we're going to do this. Now we're going to talk on the social media. I see so many posts on the social media about desertification, degradation, climate change and all this. It's fun, you know, I mean, guys, stop talking. Where is the action? Anyway, so the point is that passive long-term exposure, carbon credit, okay, it may take 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years to get some regeneration. The shrubs, the acacias, all these things that you see, these beautiful flowers you see in magazine, they're going to take years to come back. Okay, now deferred grazing, destocking, problem, feral control. Destocking, it means what the hell you're going to do in terms of living. You're going to get tourists on your property. Some guys like some station in the Murchison are doing fantastic business, you know, having tourists coming and breathing fresh air like the sheep. Yeah, okay. Now, reseeding and water harvesting, just to trigger the revegetation. You're not going to be able to do it all over the place. But if you know your place, you know your land. I'm just finishing. Thank you very much. If you know your land, you could choose some of the place. You could choose some of the place and do the work there. Now, using native or exotic. I want to say this because I had a lot of problem with concrete wall from the quarantine and all this. They say, no, you can't do this. But if you use some of the native species, you're going to have problem with the Chenopodiaceae, Amarantaceae, because most of the seeds are very short lifespan. You collect them, you put them in the ground. You collect them, you keep them in store for 1 year, even in the freezer, or not in the freezer. They're dead. Forget about it. Give them to the chooks. That will be much better. And now you have Atriplex, which could be useful. Atriplex, sodium chloride on the wings of the seeds, the fruits, and they have to leach this to get a proper germination. Sorry guys, I'm taking too much time. Now, harvesting native species. Who is doing it? Nobody. That's finished. Too expensive. Who is going to buy seeds at $20 a kilo, $30 a kilo? I mean, nobody is going to put this money on rangeland. But you could have other seeds that could be produced very simply. Now, Australian quarantine, I said, biosecurity and quarantine regulation keep Australian agriculture safe. I'm not arguing on this. Yes, good, thanks. But all Australian agricultural products, plant and livestock, are exotic. They are aliens. Aliens, I don't like this word. It's very racist. I would say exotic. They're not from here. Exotic pasture has always been introduced here. Even some of the guys there introduced, this terrible bituminaria bituminosa, which is smelling, you know. It's interesting, in Algeria, no sheep will take bituminaria. They don't graze it. Some other places, maybe. Now, problem, quarantine says they become invasive. Pennisetum, along the coast near Geraldton, you know, 20 years ago it was clean. Now it's all covered with the pennisetum. Beautiful in your garden, but a terrible pest because you're not going to graze it. Now, conclusion, coming to, you see, is the experience of Western Australia going to be lost? You see, all these plants which are kept now in South Australia and all this, they're going to be lost. So you know about all this. I'm not going to come back to this. Of course, thanks to my Libyan friends, Libya, Benghazi, and West Australian friends, of course, Norma Hulse, Clive Francis, and a few others, and my wife, heroic wife, and the kids. I mean, so many years. Thank you, kids. Okay, I finished. This is some of the people from, from Libya. Of course, we would all like to have a landscape like this with nice, beautiful sheep. Or are we going to end up with a landscape like this? Okay.
Excellent story. We'll take some few questions because we're running out of time. So be brief, to the point, and Gils, who wants to ask the first question?
Should I just give this to the people?
I can give them to them if you want to.
Kevin first.
Kevin, I'm an old man, I can't hear you.
Nearly 80. Could you briefly talk about the role or the breakthrough with rhizobia? Because when we first started, we only had a limited amount of rhizobia for the many Libyan species we had. And that breakthrough was quite important, wasn't it?
Yes, at the beginning, when we brought in the medics from Libya, we thought, they should be inoculated in Libya. But, I mean, the land was full of medics, so what's the point of inoculating? So we start collecting. We were using at this time U45, and then we got to CC169, and then we got to this and this, all the other rhizobium. Useless in Libya, forget about them. Except if you had some specific, like Medicago polymorpha, which were very, very specific for their rhizobium. Otherwise, you do the reseeding. Now, if you're doing the reseeding here in Western Australia, on rangeland using pods, it will be very easy to inoculate the pods with the proper rhizobia. There's no problem. This is a very simple process. Other question?
Any other questions? Yeah. Snowball.
You mentioned native plants. So
Yes.
I'm very supportive of native plants, and there have been efforts. Ryan's here. She made efforts with other people to work with natives.
Yes.
And myself, and there's certain potential there,
Yes.
and there are bituminaria plants that are eaten by sheep.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was saying, I mean, from my experience in Algeria, where I spent, over a year on the high plateau with the nomads, and bituminaria,
Can you speak up a bit more, maybe to the microphone here?
Yeah. This bituminaria bituminosa from Algeria, especially the high plateau, no sheep, local sheep, would touch them. That was ungrazed. Very strongly smell, you see, there's no point. Now, the one you have here tested by, maybe you selected them, I think they're coming from, the island of, So different place, I would suspect that there will be different sheep also, you see. I mean, again, You may find some material. For example, Atriplex helimus, you see, which is common in North Africa. People call it Atriplex helimus. But there are so many different ecotypes. Some are very well grazed, some other are not touched, not even by camels. We don't know. Nobody is working on it. So now the point about collecting native things. I don't know at what scale you're doing this. Is it something that you're doing on commercial size, or just as a weekend type of thing?
There's no support for that sort of work.
Yeah, for work.
Not anymore.
Yeah, there was a little bit, not nowhere near
Yeah.
enough.
The problem I see is, and we had the same discussion in North Africa, the Middle East, by collecting, some of the beautiful perennials. But the problem with the perennials is that it will take years and years to get established. You see? I'm happy to come and discuss with you, but I would like to see, some places where within 5 years in arid zones, 200, 250 millimeters, you get a good establishment within 5 years. I really would like to see it.
Yep. Okay, I think we will wrap up. Thank you very much, Gintz, for this wonderful story. And we have one Libyan student, and who recently finished a PhD with us. So we used to have a number of Libyan students in the past.
Yes.
But sadly, there has been a huge connection with Libya. Thank you for that wonderful talk.
Thank you.
Now I would. Yeah. So there are a few more items for us. Very briefly, the next important event for us is 6th of August. Very important industry forum, 19th year. And this is going to talk about the next 20 years of research, development, and extension investment. Who is going to bankroll? We have got a system now. I'm not sure in 20 years' time we're going to have that. That's at the University Club Auditorium. We have already 195 people have registered for that. So please use the QR code. It is free, and afterwards there is drinks and nibbles. Professor Fiona Wood from the medical professor is coming and talking, because she's part of the R&D investment plan for Australian Prime Minister, and a number of farmers and others are talking. The next one is the Hector and Andrew Stewart Memorial Lecture. This is again a prestigious lecture. This will be given by Professor Salah Sukaria from University of Sydney, and he's talking about integrating physical and digital agriculture, robotics, AI, and so on. A very eminent personality, so worth coming. Again, free lecture. And we just released our annual research report 2024, very comprehensive, worth looking, the kind of research, both in depth and breadth, going on at UWA, and you can get that freely, can be downloaded. Finally, I would like to just give an appeal here. You know that Professor Robson would have been here because he had a lot of connection with Libya, especially training number of students, and his PhD was on medics here at UWA. So we have named this lecture hall called Robson Memorial Lecture Hall, and soon I'll be putting a photograph of him. Very soon the family will come and do it. But what I'm appealing is there are two things we are looking. One is Alan Robson remote scholarship. So he always valued the regional community because he come from regional Victoria. We're going to have a scholarship for an undergraduate student, any area, it doesn't matter, ag or music, and that will be a perpetual scholarship. So the contribution will go towards that. The other more dear to me is the Alan Robson lecture series, memorial lecture, annual lecture, and that will be again from Institute of Agriculture. So the QR code is there. Any contribution will go that towards the bequest fund, and the interest earned from that will be used. But Robson, we have a Robson walk now here. Then Robson steps at the University Club, which was his brainchild, and then we named this lecture theatre Robson Lecture Theatre, and we will also put his photo here, and then the scholarships, endowment scholarship. I think that's all. And we're going to take a photo outside immediately because this group is